Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is the Go Long Podcast. I'm Tyler Dunn here with my esteemed shopping cart returning, non-airplane budging, non-air elevator entering co-host, Jim Monis. Monis, what's up, man? Where are you at? How's life? What's happening?
I'm good. I'm down in Bethany Beach, Delaware, visiting the family. So that's always a nice change up, good change of pace. Beach town, USA. Get my crab cakes, my Chesapeake Bay oysters. Puts me in a good mood. Puts me in a good mood. Just like the Carolina Panthers right now.
Yeah, let's waste no time. Let's get right to it because
Have
it's
to
nice
talk
to have
about it.
some news. It's great to have some news.
This is a good one. I
We
find
all
this
we all saw this
division.
coming, right? It was inevitable
I think so. I think so.
that Baker Mayfield and his $18.8 guaranteed $1 million contract had to be moved somehow. It seems like Carolina and Cleveland both wanted this to work. It was a matter of who would take what money. And so if anybody missed it, if you were under a rock the last 48 hours, Cleveland's eating a good amount of money. I believe, what is it? 10 mil?
And I think I saw 10, yeah.
And
10.5, something like that, yeah.
right. Carolina's only on the hook for 3 or 4 million. And Baker Mayfield's taking a hit as well, but I'd imagine he'll get some of that back on incentives if he hits it. Makes all the sense in the world for the Panthers. The Browns are somewhat operating with their tail between their legs in scramble mode, preparing for Jacoby Brissett to be their quarterback probably for the entire season. A lot to unpack here, Jim, our resident general manager at Go Long. So let me give you the floor. I'll shut the hell up. Let's listen to the expert. How do you compute this all from a Carolina perspective? Because we've talked a lot about the Browns. Let's talk about the Carolina Panthers and their plan.
What if I told you I kind of like the Panthers team with Baker Mayfield?
I would agree wholeheartedly.
You feel we haven't talked about this yet. So I was interested to see what your reaction was when I told you that. That team, this will be if Matt Rule can't get it done. I think this is a good football team. I think the GM's done a decent job there. That defense is good. They can get after the quarterback. McCaffrey he's special, but where's the accountability? Can he be available? So, obviously a lot of question marks, but for some reason, I kind of like it for Carolina.
I do too. So there's two ways to look at it. I get the inclination for most people to trash the Carolina Panthers quarterback plan. Like if you're going to handle the most important position in sports, it's about as bad as you can handle it. I mean, you go from signing Teddy Bridgewater to replace Cam Newton, your franchise guy, for a decade. And then you trade for Sam Darnold. You trade away 3 draft picks for Sam Darnold, including a second rounder, right? And then you instantly you give him that 5th-year option. You pick that up like right away. And then you trade up for Matt Corral out of Ole Miss in the 3rd round.
Here's the worst part, though. This is a good move for Carolina in the fact that I think Mayfield, is better than what they have. But what they have isn't good enough, right? So that's not the answer. Is Baker Mayfield the answer at quarterback? I don't think so. No, I really don't. It's not that I don't love Baker Mayfield or whatever. I see him more as that you're always going to try to upgrade him at the position. Darnold, I just can't do it anymore. But, the flashes are always exciting. And who's to say he doesn't win the job? I mean, at the end of the day, this thing can turn into a little bit of a shit show, what they have going. Yeah. But I don't hate the move. I don't hate that they're trying to make a run. Matt Rule knows this is his last shot.
I mean, that's where we're in total agreement. I mean, I was dead wrong on Sam Darnold this time last year. I thought that
Oh,
it was,
Tyler,
all
you
Adam
were,
Gase, all the Jets, just
yeah,
the mono, the injuries,
he
the
is.
ESPN graphics. It was just a cluster, in New York. And it started well for Sam Darnold last season. Remember? I mean, he had some moments. He actually ran for a few touchdowns, and then everything
Promise
just
you,
fell apart. And he was the worst quarterback in the league.
it was just that fatal flaw. Well, I always talk about fatal flaw, and it's official for him. Like that decision making and turnovers, you can't do it. Can't do it.
52 interceptions in 49 starts. And in addition to 29 total fumbles, he's been a turnover machine. And I'm with you on Carolina's. Look, it's not ideal. This is the absolute
No,
less
right,
than
right.
worst
Right.
domino effect you could ask for any team at that position. But you had to get better. You have to fight for your job. And if you're going to look at this through the prism of, does this make the Carolina Panthers a Super Bowl contender? Of course, it's a failure what they've done the last few years. None of these moves have done that, but
No.
they're in that tier of, we need to keep our jobs. And if they get to the playoffs, right? Even if they have to stumble on in and what's a weaker NFC, and Baker Mayfield looks good, like say he looks like 2020 Baker Mayfield, and you're now thinking about, okay, maybe this is somebody that we want multiple years. At least as a front office and a head coach and a staff, you can kind of hang your hat on something. Before this trade, where was the hope with this team at quarterback? There was nothing. So he gives them a chance to keep their jobs,
Agreed.
make the playoffs, and at least have some semblance of optimism into 2023.
They have that same makeup that I felt like we had in Buffalo when we were there, in like 15, 16, like that 8-8 written all over it. Like we're just trying to do the best we can without the true answer at quarterback. But we have a special running back, we have a special receiver and more. We have a defense. Like we had those things too in Buffalo. We had those things with Shady and Sammy and a defense. So I mean, and here you are, you're just banging your head trying to get that quarterback situation right.
Yeah,
I think you said it. Like this is the best. Baker's going to give you hopefully the best Carolina team you can put out there this year.
I don't think the most optimistic Carolina Panthers fan, somebody who's been there since Kerry Collins and Tim Bayaka-Batuka, like give me that Panthers fan, even that rare long-term Panthers fan is not finding any shred of optimism with a Sam Darnold as the week 1 starter. Like you cannot even begin to talk yourself into, and I get it. Like some national reporters were instantly tweeting after the trade, they still love Sam Darnold. Like he could still win the job. Like they don't like Sam Darnold if they're doing this trade and they wanted to do this trade. Like they know what they have in Darnold. They absolutely do. And so keep trying. Keep taking swings at the plate. Like, what are you going to do? Just sit on your hands and
you can't
make crap up at the podium that you believe in this guy? You don't believe in him. Like, make the trade.
Do you think McCaffrey can stay healthy?
Boy, the volume of touches, he just has not been able to.
He's so good.
That's the thing. There's no problem with his game at all.
No,
I mean,
no,
when he's healthy, he is
special.
the most dynamic.
Special, yeah.
But let's pull up McCaffrey. It's just been health completely. I mean, that's what it's been. If he can stay healthy, that's the thing. We can sit here and talk ourselves into Baker Mayfield winning 9 games, 10 games.
That's what I'm saying. That would be, a great season. I mean, a crazy season for them. Just like that's how we would have felt in Buffalo if we won 9, 10.
I think it's realistic. I mean, you look at the NFC,
certainly do.
Green Bay, Tampa, Dallas, Philly, the Niners, the Rams. I'll throw the Vikings in there, but I mean,
But
if Carolina's defense is a top 5, top 6 defense, which is realistic, I mean, they've got a good defense, to your point, really good. Then the offense only has to be middle of the road to make the playoffs. And they can be
I
middle of the
just,
road.
the McCaffrey factor, I think it's big.
When
I like it though. This is good though. This is, wait.
So let me throw a counterfactual at you, Jim. Let's go back to the 2021 NFL draft when we had our live 5-hour, whatever it was, extravaganza with subscribers. That was a lot of fun. A lot of drinks had, a lot of stories told. A lot of reasons that we couldn't include that extravaganza in the podcast feed. Jim, you were feeling it that night. You were feeling it.
I know that there was some talk about the Richie happy hour not being aired as the all-time episode, but the first draft has to at least be in the top 3 somewhere of not
It
being
definitely is.
Cannot be aired.
Yeah, I think I said that the Richie Incognito go along Zoom happy hour was akin to the video in The Ring. If you were to see it, I feel like bad things just would happen.
Yes, if you
Because
watch
it was all I'll say about that is we talked about the bullying scandal. We talked about a certain Instagram photo that Jonathan Martin posted. Let's not forget, with guns, tagging Incognito, basically threatening to kill him. We talked about that night. And let's just say I was involved that night. I may or may not have been sitting right next to Richie Incognito when that took over the internet, and Richie gave us the play-by-play. And just another reason people need to subscribe to Go Long, right, Jim? We're bringing him back. I don't know when, but Richie has confirmed he will come on another happy hour. Chances are that the recording will not be resurfaced on any of the podcast feeds, but
if there's a way
to subscribe, right?
If there's a way that Whaley and I can join that,
hell yeah, you're going to join. Get on in.
It would be good.
And we're going to get into it. He got into some wreck stories a little bit from training camp that were pretty funny.
Yeah. They were tight.
So counterfactual for you. Let's go back to that night, that draft night, 2021. And you were very, very high on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Last spring. I mean, you studied that quarterback class about as close as anybody I know.
I was in on it.
You're in on Justin Fields, and the Carolina Panthers are sitting there at number 8 overall. So it goes Lawrence to the Jags, Wilson to the Jets, Lance to the Niners, Kyle Pitts to the Atlanta Falcons, Jamar Chase, 5th overall to Cincinnati.
Hello.
Miami gets Jalen Waddle. I mean,
he's good
top-heavy draft, yeah. Sewell to the Lions with fist pumps galore in that draft room.
That could have been a Fields pick, yeah.
And then the Carolina Panthers select J.C. Horn, who played all of 3 games. So they're getting him back next season. And hey, he might be very, very good.
Yeah, he does look good.
But you had a shot at Justin Fields, your guy, Jim Monis's guy. So, a year removed, we can't say what was right, what was wrong, but there's been a hell of a lot of quarterbacks shuffling there in Carolina, even since that night. Should they have just taken Justin Fields and gone all in on him?
The inconsistency shows up in the front office and head coaching, because why this year you're taking your shots, right? Hey, let's take our shot at Baker Mayfield. Why not? Why not do that last year? Why not take a shot on Justin Fields? There was no way that you can't tell me he was perfect for where they were picking. Perfect. Let Darnold play. Hey, okay, you invested in Darnold. Let's see what he has. Our staff is, we're not going anywhere. We're intact. Let's get Fields to take a year, just like Mahomes had a year under Alex Smith. Let Fields sit. Now let's go this year. How excited would Carolina be right now? Some Fields coming in after hopefully he's for the whole year. McCaffrey coming back. That is like, wouldn't you be? If I was Carolina, I'd be pretty excited if I had Fields, McCaffrey, more. Like, I like their team. I don't think they're a bad team. Like I said, I like their team. So I guess my point is that was your chance to go after. And why aren't you in that mentality last year with those quarterbacks? And now you are this year. Like
That's why you have to forecast drafts, right? It's why you don't just panic in March.
That's not a plan. Great, because they passed on Justin Field. They didn't know that they'd be Baker Mayfield. You know what I'm saying? They didn't know that. So there's no plan, in my opinion.
It seemed like a smart trade for Sam Darnold, just because it was so easy to crap on the Jets.
Well,
a terribly run franchise, a terribly coached franchise.
I thought it was
you gave up a lot, but you get into the draft, and you just wonder where their head was at that position, because you had 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 15 picks, and you're a team in those first 15 picks that has handled the position, about as bad as you can handle it. They've been a bull in a china shop, just bashing around. They don't know what they're doing, to your point. And I don't know if Justin Fields is good, but you had a shot at Fields and Mac Jones. And maybe you could have even moved up and forced your way into the top 3. And then you're right. And that gives you that job security. You can sell that you're building with a young quarterback better than you can sell what they've done the last few years.
I mean, especially when you think about what Cam Newton meant to that city. And I'm not saying Justin Fields is Cam Newton, but he has the same, he can handle being the superstar. He can handle being the hero of that city. Like, Justin Fields has that in him. And what a perfect guy to come in and give you that leadership at that position that you need, just like Cam gave him. I just, that you can't pass up. You can't, until you find that quarterback, you can't stop.
You know what, though, in a roundabout way, the point you just made is why I also think Baker Mayfield can work in Carolina, because is he a pinpoint accurate quarterback? No, he'll be around 60 to 63%. Is he, traditional pick you apart? Is he 6'3", big arm? Maybe he's got a good arm, but like it's all the other stuff. If you talk yourself into Baker Mayfield, like I do here, and like I did with Scott McCloughan, we had that story a few months back on why Baker Mayfield could, have a fantastic year with Cleveland, as we thought back then. It's all that other stuff. It's just that, we always come back to our analytics versus just being a dude, being a guy teammates want to play for, having some shit to you that when you need a drive, you need a touchdown, everything's against the line, and you want that on your shoulders, and you wear slights on your sleeve, all of that stuff. You kind of, I'm not anti-analytics by any means. You got to operate with intelligence when you're building a team, but it's not baseball. The game isn't played on a spreadsheet. It's not, you can't operate that way. At that position, I want somebody who is full of competitiveness. It matters to them. And it's not the case for all quarterbacks. I mean, there are some pretty aloof quarterbacks out there that are unbelievably talented. Look, if you took all those intangibles that Baker Mayfield has and stuffed it into Kyler Murray or somebody like that. I mean, Kyler Murray is somebody that's drawn criticism for being not the best leader, not the most vocal. But anyways, I feel like that's what Carolina needs. I mean, they're kind of a lost franchise. They're in a transient city. They need a face. They need a cattle prod. They need a Baker Mayfield that's just going to come in and say the wrong thing half the time, maybe grab his crotch to top an opponent like he did at Oklahoma. Who knows? You don't know what he's going to do. But hell, right? They were so wildly uninteresting before this trade. To me, now they are wildly interesting. If for nothing else, that quarterback room, Mayfield, Darnold, Matt Corral. I mean, if we could get an unedited Hard Knocks, I want a camera in that room day in and day out.
Well, you didn't mention, what if PJ Walker wins the job?
PJ Walker, forget about PJ Walker.
Don't forget about PJ Walker. That's Matt Rule's boy from Temple. I knew last year when they brought Cam Newton back, that was the saddest, most desperate, wrong. It just was so bad. It was so desperate. I'm so glad they did, because I bet against them big that week. Because I'm like, there's no way you can just join a team and pull this off, like a full week to prepare for Cam. Like Cam Newton, they're not beating a team. Cam's done. Like, he was done. And they were like trying to just grasp. And it's like, where's the direction, to your point? And at least now with Baker, you have a fearless guy. He's fearless.
Where's that coming from, though, with Cam Newton? I mean, is that coming from the top? Is that coming from ownership? David Tepper looking at empty seats and then just saying, dude, bring back Cam. The guy that you kicked out the door the second you were our name coach, like, bring him back, because we need somebody to care about this damn team.
It was strange. It just felt wrong. I don't know where that comes from. It was desperate. You almost hope it did come from ownership if you're the GM, because, to be honest, if I was Scott Fitter, I wouldn't want that as my answer to the owner. Like, hey, what if the owner says, what are we doing at quarterback? Hey, what do you think about I think we should bring back Cam Newton. Like, if I'm the owner, I'd look at, like, that's the best you got? That's the best you're coming at me with, Cam Newton? We established Cam is done. We established that. That's the best you have. If I was the owner, so I guess what I'm saying is, I hope it came from the ownership. I think that's a bad look,
right? I mean, Scott Fitterer is a smart dude.
I like Scott.
That works for a well-run organization. Do you know him well?
Mm-hmm. I don't know him well, but I feel like I've been around Scott, where I feel like he's a football guy. If that makes sense. There's certain guys you just are like, yeah, he loves it. He's in. He seems to be doing a good job. I mean, I just don't know what that plan is at quarterback.
And their assistant GM is a name that's come up on this podcast that our Buffalo listeners are familiar with. Dan Morgan, a former Panthers great himself. He's been around competence. He's been around, this Buffalo team and how they've been building. And I can't see him, advocating for a cartoonish signing either. But at least now, they had the time as an organization to come to this trade, this decision. And hey, if you've got to try. And they have done some good things. So when you look at their defense, what do you like about their defense?
Pass rush. Pass rush is real.
Burns.
I like Burns. And then I think I actually did like Horn is a good corner. It's just, to me, you passed up on a guy that could be your future franchise quarterback. But to get Horn back, he got hurt last year as well. I like that safety.
Jeremy Chin. Yeah.
Yep. I like him.
Shaq Thompson is one of the best linebackers in the sport.
He just gets nasty. Back to your point on analytics. I love analytics. I do, as a tool and a great way to measure and check yourself. But the number one thing that you want to find in every single football player is how much they love the game and how tough they are. I don't care regardless. And analytics can't do that. So to your point, you have to have that type of, that eye, that scout in you, like that. But yeah, anyway. So Carolina has some torn labrum.
Yeah. Before I so rudely interrupted you, I wanted to ask
No,
you a
I
question.
wanted to make sure that was my fault. I threw you off there. I wanted the analytic thing I wanted to throw in there.
What would you do if you were in that front office? So, if you're sitting there back in February and figuring out a plan after the merry-go-round with PJ Walker and Cam Newton and Sam Darnold, and you're on the hook for that money with Darnold, and job security is all on thin ice. Like, what would you have done? And like you said, you were kind of familiar with this predicament in Buffalo, where, I mean, the roster around the quarterback position was really good. Just like this roster may be pretty solid. So how would you have operated if you're running the Carolina Panthers?
You're talking about this offseason?
Right, like backtrack to
When all the can. I think at that point, PJ Walker, go with it. He let him like the Cam Newton thing was wrong, but let Walker, and then you should have had a better, at least bring somebody else in. And
I'm sorry, I mean in the off season, like if you're
okay, so into the off season, they drafted a quarterback. They did take one, which I like. Like they did have, so they are showing that they're trying. And then they went and got Baker. So I can't say that I would do anything differently than how they approached it this year, because they were a little handcuffed. And if they didn't love a quarterback, where they were picking early, they still got one. A guy that they are excited about. And that shows me something. They know Darnold's not the answer. And they go out and get Baker. So I really don't hate what they've done. I think I hate the fact that, I don't hate what they did this year. I just don't understand why that wasn't where the aggression was to get Justin Fields. I think that's the one I look back on and say, why wasn't that your same mentality that you showed it right now where, okay, hey, here's a quarterback that we think can help us. Let's go get him. They took one, drafted one, Baker, like that. A guy that is a proven that can win games in the NFL, Baker, and a rookie to develop. Great formula. I mean, it's the right formula to be in if you don't have a true guy, you're hoping to hit on one of them.
And that's why it doesn't hurt to think a year or two in advance, like you guys did.
Where's the plan?
Smart teams. Yeah. I mean, you hope to stick around to see through that plan.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see it would have been. That's one that would have been a fun. That would have been a fun one to be a part of.
Well, it's nuts to look back at that 2018 draft now, because who were the two guys with all of the question marks, in the lead up? It was Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Bill Polian's talking about Lamar being a wide receiver.
Ravens took a tight end. I mentioned it every pod.
They did.
But to your point, it's fascinating. I wish so bad. And I didn't even study those guys like that. I was kind of like, I think I'm going to take the year off from watching football. That was right. I was too fresh.
Here's a little nugget for our Bills listeners. The Bills, I was told, loved Baker Mayfield. They were in on Baker Mayfield. If both Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen were available, I don't know if you've heard anything. It's all hindsight. You hear different things, and the Bills deserve all the credit in the world for taking Josh Allen where they did, aggressively chasing him. He is maybe the best quarterback in the NFL. But if both were available, it's kind of a mixture of things you hear and gut feeling. I think the Bills would have taken Baker Mayfield.
I could probably find out.
I think you should.
It's pretty fascinating to think. I know.
And hey, things would have been great, right? I mean, they would have won with Baker Mayfield. This is a pro Baker podcast.
That's why the draft is wild.
It is. And right, everybody's going to have their own version of events, but everybody in that room knows the truth and how things went down.
That's the best part about
Mhm.
it, being in the draft room. Like there's always things where you just shake your head about and like that people know they can't talk about it. They don't want to talk, and they shouldn't. I mean, that's part of the
You want
deal.
to speak up though, right? I mean, you tell me if you're in that draft room
It,
and you're confident in liking a player, loving a player, or disliking or hating a player, like I would think you would need to speak up regardless of where you are in the totem pole, just so everybody knows, like it's
you would,
documented. Like
you would,
when my ass is on the line and you're thinking about, promoting me or firing me, let's
you
not
would,
forget that moment where I said this about that player, right?
you would. Yeah, it happens every year and every area scout will always do that. Like, because the great area scouts know their role. Where I'm being passionate about this. I think we should take him if he's there. If you don't, I support whoever you take, but I think you're crazy. Like that. And then it's out of here, then it's up the totem pole.
I mean, there's
But yes, I've had plenty of those.
well, is there any you'd like to bring up?
Well, the Bills was different because then we were actually the decision maker. So we see how some of that stuff worked. But I mean, yeah, I could think about like with the Saints. I can remember just thinking that Cam Newton. I remember thinking that I was passionate about let's hope Carolina doesn't take Cam Newton because we're in their division, and not everybody thought he was that one. I felt good about because there were question marks on him coming out. I mean, people weren't sure about him.
Laptop.
Yeah, which oh God. All I did was scout him and watch a horrible Auburn team win a national championship. I don't know what else you need to see.
I still can't believe you'd besmirch Gene Chizik like that. An all-time great of a coach.
Gene Chizik, Ron Rivera, Sean McDermott. A lot of thank you notes to Mr. Cam.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any player in sports that can have a Midas touch like nailing quarterback. And I mean, look at the guys who drafted Baker Mayfield. You had John Dorsey as GM, Elliott Wolf as assistant GM. As we wrote, Scott McCloughan was consulting and doing a lot of work. And he worked with John Dorsey for a number of years. And
Scott and Dorsey go back.
Dorsey and Wolf aren't not there anymore. And it was supposed to be magical. Right after that rookie season, you've got Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. It's a dream team situation. And Freddie Kitchens. We got to admit when we were wrong on this podcast, and that's another case where I thought that was going to work with Freddie Kitchens. I mean, as a play caller, Baker's rookie year, there was that play like late in the season. It was so weird. Like, remember, like Baker Mayfield kind of like flipped it to himself in the air.
Yes,
and
yes.
then threw it. He was feeling it. And he's such a front runner that way as a quarterback. When he's feeling it, he threw 27 touchdowns. And Freddie's calling plays. They finally get rid of the stench that was Hugh Jackson as their head coach. And then everything just fell apart. And then they make the playoffs the year after that. So I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent there. It's
no, I was more laughing thinking about the whole Hugh Jackson. I've talked to somebody that recently left Cleveland, and he was telling me some stories.
Oh yeah.
They had no chance.
Well, it starts with ownership, and Jimmy Haslam has not been
ownership, GM, coach tied together, quarterback, and that ownership seems like a shit show.
I mean, I'm glad that we spent this much time on Carolina because we've talked a lot about Cleveland, but where in the hell do the Browns go?
I don't know. I don't like it. I don't care what happens to them. I'm kind of over it. Like, it's just, the whole thing is just ugly. It makes me want, maybe I really want Baker to have a good year in Carolina.
Week 1, they play each other.
Love it.
I think the Aren't the Browns paying Baker Mayfield something like $500,000 to try to beat them in a game? I mean, really, when you work out the numbers, it's something like that.
He actually,
That's crazy.
that's pretty crazy. I didn't even think that's really good.
And it's just so it was such a strange trade from smart football people, which makes me think ownership had its fingerprints all over this. Again, that chase of relevancy and living in the doldrums for most of 2 decades. It can make you do squirrely things, unethical things, morally challenging things in this case. And I get it. Like, it sounds like the NFL would love to. I mean, if it was up to the NFL with this punishment, they probably would love to just make it indefinite to prove a point. But they have been able, reportedly, to bring substantive, like Deshaun Watson forcibly did this to this. And so I think all signs, at least right now, while we're taping this, point to a 2022 year-long suspension. But then, even then, that's a full season. And then you're talking 2 seasons in a row that he hasn't played football. What does he even have after all of that? You know, at the price that Deshaun Watson came with, I mean, this is a potentially franchise ruining decision, which is really saying something for the Cleveland Browns because they made a few of those over the years.
And what if they get rid of the coach after this year? And then Deshaun, if he doesn't play this year, then he has to learn another offense. Not how you build. Not how you build. That is not how you build. Not to sustain success.
Unless Jacoby Brissett turns the corner.
Man, he fools some people. Bill Parcells loved that guy.
Did he?
Yeah. The reason I remember that is Brissett threw at this, it was this pro day down in at Florida Atlantic. There was a receiver the Vikings took from Germany. He was coming over from Germany to work out. So we fly down there to, see him. And twist my arm. I had to leave Buffalo. And I think that was in February to go down to Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, it's a damn shame.
But anyway, Brissett threw at the workout. He was NC State's quarterback. I mean, he was a known guy, but he was kind of, we had mid-round where he was, is what we thought, but Parcells was there. And he was there to kind of talk about him. He had some type of history of following him in high school. And Parcells has some formula for quarterbacks, and it has to do with like years played, starts, completions, I think, all that stuff. And Brissett hit some of those numbers, I think. So it was just one of those things that Parcells started talking. As soon as he mentioned it, then Brissett all of a sudden became like he's not very good though.
No,
it's like he's had plenty of opportunities.
New England, Indy, Miami. But you brought up just, Parcells' system for grading quarterbacks. This is what I meant to bring up earlier. I mean, I can't say it enough how much I love your system, Jim. And
I mean,
we should just call it the Monis system. And we're going to lean into it heavy this season, but
I'm going to do it again, but it's not, it's just grade the throw.
But it combines, a little bit of just the right, perfect amount of analytic stuff that you need into a position and a game that is more about just making plays in clutch situations and being a guy. And for people who don't know how you come to that point system, just kind of detail it here, because we'll have it through this year.
I don't want to go too much into it, but it's pretty basic, where you're just grading every throw and the difficulty of the throw. And then, was it a great throw, a good throw, a no point throw, or a poor accurate throw, interceptions, obviously. So those, just the big, positive, negative point system, basically. And it just keeps it all relevant, and running the ball, you can get points. So that's why, like, for me, Lamar's always up there. I mean, he's up there. He's a
So it could be
complete.
a +1, a -1, a +2. Is it
He,
just
he
1 and 2? Do you ever go 3 if it's something
so
particularly
so
ridiculous?
so I've thought about this a lot, and this is where it can get. To answer your question, no. And the reason why is it can skew it too much, and it becomes a little judgmental to say, I'm trying to say, I'm trying to keep it where it's not too judgmental. Like, that was a great throw, 2 points, and not to say it was a rare throw, which you're going to see every now and then, but I think it could skew a little bit. Listen, it's not it's a system that works for me.
But I want brains behind my system. I want
Yeah,
somebody who has been a scout like yourself
yeah.
for the better part of 2
I have a
decades.
rhyme and reason to it.
Exactly. There needs to be some type of editorialness to it, some opinion to it. Somebody that's judging what's a good play or a bad play, and not just something a computer spits out. And you're doing that for every snap of every quarterback. And then when
I
you
did it.
add it
I was
all
doing
up,
it for all those back. I did it for PJ Walker, and I was watching those. I was like, oh, it was brutal.
and at the end of the season, there might be something that surprises an observer, but
I will tell you,
it's
for
a true reflection.
The one guy that I was waiting to see on, as far as not to be too judgmental, was Tua, where he never graded. He wasn't too high, but he hasn't really low yet. He still has a chance off what I've seen a little bit. Has a chance.
Why don't we end it there? Because I feel like
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa is a player that we will be getting around to at Go Long. We need to.
Oh, good.
Very interesting.
Good. I hope you do. That's okay. Good.
All right. That's going to
good.
do it, I think, for this pod. If you're listening before Saturday, it's a perfect time to subscribe. We've got Wyatt Teller on the next Go Long Zoom happy hour, 4 p.m. Eastern Saturday. The Cleveland Browns whiskey drinking, alligator hunting, sternum breaking, badass of a Pro Bowl guard. He is. I can't wait for people to see and hear the same Wyatt Teller I did down in Ohio for that story we did, Jim. Yeah. It was a wild experience. His mind moves 100 miles an hour and his mouth keeps up. It's a lot like hanging out with Jeremy Shockey for the book I did. I mean, where it's high energy and you're just trying to keep up, and he's going to have the whiskey ready. We'll all hang out virtually. So it's just for paid subscribers. So if you don't subscribe, golongtd.com, upgrade. You get full access to all of the Zoom happy hours. We want you to have the chance to hang out with these players like we do. So let's all hang out and get to know each other a bit, eh? Are you able to join, Jim? I didn't even ask you.
Travel.
It's going to get you, man. Hey, duty
travel
calls.
With the 2-year-old.
You know what? I think you just kind of bring him in the fold. Bring Walter into the fold and, break him in.
A Wyatt Teller happy hour.
All right, everybody. See you then. And thanks so much for listening, sharing, leaving a rating, review. We greatly appreciate it. We'll catch you next time.